Welcome to the Beyond Ordinary Women podcast. Every 2 weeks, we post podcast versions of one of our free training videos, or you can access our videos now at beyondordinarywomen.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, I'm Kay Daigle of Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries, and I'm welcoming you today to this video as we talk about leadership. Is it time to move on? And our guest today is Claudia McGuire, who is also on our Bow Ministry team. And Claudia and I have both wrestled with this question at times and thought that having a conversation about it might benefit some of you out there who are wrestling with the same issue. So Claudia, as we think about, is it time to move on? What are some of the maybe red lights that you might be seeing that might say maybe it's time to move on?
I think that's one of the hardest questions we have to answer when we get to a place in our career or in our ministry or in whatever work that we do, that we have to ask that question, is it time to move on? Has God brought me to this place because He's opening up some other opportunity for me? Am I holding on to something just because it's been comfortable and it's provided a paycheck or, purpose for a long time? So I think that's just a very hard question to answer. And one of us, I think that one question that I think few of us really spend a lot of time on until we get right to that very end. Something has pushed us to really consider, what is it that's making me feel like I'm just over this work? I'm just over it right now.
And one reason we don't consider it is because we don't want to consider it sometimes because of the paycheck or because of whatever it is. There's something that we like about it still. Yes. There's something that we or perhaps think we need. Yes. That we don't want to let go of.
I agree. And sometimes when we're feeling like it might be time to move on, when we actually are ready to face that question, is it time to move on, could be when we come to the realization that our family is suffering, our family suffering, or maybe our health is suffering, that we've kind of neglected our family for a while, or we've neglected our own health for a while, or there's just life changes that have happened, and they've set us in a different place than we were when we began that work. And I think those are good things to look at because all those things do take a toll on us mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally. And again, we can get to that point that we just keep setting things aside. We don't deal with them, but something at some point is going to snap and create an environment that isn't as healthy to actually address these things and look at them. So those are just some things right off the bat. Family, health, life changes that can lead us to a place where it's like, is this something I need to continue doing, or is it time to think about an exit plan?
Mm-hmm. In one of my situations, and I have several of these is it time to move on stories, but in one of my situations I really did burn out. And so that was a real red light to me. But I did have to be careful as I tried to assess whether it was time to move on, because when you're in burnout, you don't want to stay. You just want everything to be over in some ways. And it's not a good place from which to actually make a decision. And so in that case, I was able to get some time off partially through my own vacation and partially the church that I was working at gave me some time off so that I could get past the burnout so that I could truly assess, is this God showing me that I need to quit, or is this just that I'm burned out and I don't feel like I can do it anymore?
Right.
And there is a real difference. And so I would just encourage anyone who feels like you're at burnout, and we do have some videos on burnout. We have 3 videos on burnout that I would hope people who feel like they're headed that way or are in that place would go ahead and watch those as well. But I would just say that is a red flag, but it's also a time to maybe step back and try to postpone the decision until after you're a little healthier spiritually and emotionally.
Yes, absolutely. I think we do get to those places in our work that we just need to step back and take some time, because we might do something that we're sorry for. As you said, you're just not in the right place to be making that decision at that time.
Right.
But I believe when you get to a place in your own heart that you are struggling with either the people or the purpose or the place, and you go to work every day and things aren't sitting right, like there's just, sometimes you can't even name it. It's just, I am not supposed to be here. That's a terrible feeling to have, but it's a good one to explore. And again, you need people around you when you are in places of burnout or just feeling like, I'm so over this work. I don't feel like I'm being effective anymore. I'm getting no joy from it. I'm suffering actually because of it. To find those people or talk with those people that can really speak into your life in an honest way to tell you, is what you're experiencing reality, or you do need some rest, or you need to put aside some quiet times for you to really pursue God and what is His will in this, other than just, I'm just done. Something made you mad. You haven't addressed the other feelings that you've had along the way, maybe for the past year or 5. And it does come to a head sometimes as just being burned out and I'm just done. And you walk out without really pursuing, where is God in this? And what is He doing in me that I need to pay attention to?
And that's really the important thing, because sometimes it's time to move on because just circumstances have changed.
Right.
And maybe you think, but I want to do more of this ministry. But God says, wait a minute, look at this situation. I mean, I think about Paul and Barnabas going out on that first mission trip and what great work they did. And then they came back and they had a big argument over John Mark and whether he should go with them. And they really weren't able to reconcile. But what did God do? He doubled the number of mission teams going out, because then Barnabas took John Mark and Paul took Silas, and now there were 2 teams going instead of just one.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying God caused that, but what I'm saying is sometimes those kinds of circumstances can show you it is time to make a change of some kind and to move on somehow.
Yes.
And it's important to pay attention to those, because what we want to do often, and I know I'm really guilty of this, you get comfortable where you are, and the fear is what's out there.
Yes.
And so that can't ever be our motivation. It cannot be that we stay because of fear.
Right. And when I got into ministry, I remember just when I got into ministry, I didn't want it to be about the paycheck. I remember saying early on in ministry, oh, I do this for nothing, for free. But then later on I was like, no, I wouldn't. I understand pay now. Give the honor to who honor's due. I totally get that. But I did say, when I get to the point that that's what it's about, I've got to leave. To me, that was not glorifying to God. It was not honoring to myself. And it wasn't for the good of others. And so when I got to that place, I had to really examine my heart in that. And I think, again, when we get to a place that we are feeling just over it, I'm so over it, I've got to go, that we need to take another assessment. We need to think about, why am I feeling this way? What are my pros and cons about doing work? What has God changed in me? Or where has my heart gone? What is going on here? And to really look at the things that you might be cheating on, or something you might be running from, or the fear. One of my favorite authors, his name is John Acuff, and he said, you have to be brave enough to be bad at something new. You have to be brave enough to be bad at something new. And that is the fear. If I leave this, what will I do? What if I fail? I recently had a conversation with someone who had a great door of opportunity open to her. She was in a great position. Another door opened where she would have more impact. And I was just so for it. But I'm like, I'm not you. This is your decision. You have to do what you feel as God is leading you to do. But she had come to that place. It's like, is my time up here? And is He offering me something else and something more? And I do feel that fear sometimes drives that decision, because we know what we can do here, but we really don't know what's out there. And am I okay to be brave enough to fail at that something, or just be bad at it for a while until I figure it out and God moves me to the place that I need to be?
Right, absolutely. And then there's the situation where you're leaving and you have no idea if God's going to open a door.
No.
But you believe my time here is up.
Right.
So what do I do? Because that's a real walk into the unknown. That takes a great deal of faith to just say, I need to leave this, and I just will trust that God will open the next door.
Yes, and as I was thinking through these things, I thought about Noah, and I thought about many people in the Bible we can read about that God invited them into places, and they were like, I can't do that. I can't speak. I can't, And Noah, building a boat, getting in the boat, he accomplished God's purpose for him in that boat, but he also had to know when to get out. Mm-hmm. So God doesn't always hold us to the same thing. A ministry He's called us to morphs over time. And you can look at lots of people in the Old and New Testament who God used in amazing ways, but they had to know when it was time to move on. They couldn't stay where they were.
Absolutely, they did. And they had to be willing to step out
to the unknown.
Sometimes to the unknown, and do that. And that is really such a truth. But sometimes God does leave us in places for a while to learn.
Yes.
And sometimes God leaves us in no place for a while to learn, and He isn't going to open the door until He's taught us what it is He wants to teach us. And we have to be willing to go into those places with Him.
Yes, absolutely.
When we know it's right to go.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Claudia. I believe this will be very helpful to a lot of people out there, and we would just like to invite you to contact Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries if you have a question, you want someone to pray with about this, you just want to talk to someone who might be able to help you explore what God is saying to you in these situations. And go back and watch the other videos where we talked about questions that are really very related to this one as to whether it's time to go, about feeling overwhelmed and feeling underappreciated. That's not the name. Overlooked. So feeling overlooked or feeling overwhelmed can be part of what leads you to ask the question, is it time to go? And watch our other videos online. We have videos for leaders of all kinds, and we just like to invite you to do that as well.
Thanks for listening to the Beyond Ordinary Women podcast. You can find more podcasts and information about women in leadership by going to beyondordinarywomen.org. This podcast was produced by Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries. Our production team includes Evelyn Babcock, Kay Daigle, Kay Halligan, Deborah Herring, Sharifa Stevens, and John Sparks. Theme music, Back in Stride by Don Miller, used by courtesy of Christine Miller.